Just out of curiosity, which casinos did you geniuses pick to rob?
Bellagio.
It's the Bellagio, the Mirage, and the MGM Grand.
Those are Terry Benedict's casinos.
Is that right?
That's right.
You guys, what do you got against Terry Benedict?
What do you have against him? That's the question.
He torpedoed my casino, muscled me out. Now he's gonna blow it up next month to make way for some gaudy monstrosity. Don't think I don't see what you're doing.
What are we doing, Ruben?
You're gonna steal from Terry Benedict. You better goddamn know. This sort of thing used to be civilized. You'd hit a guy, he'd whack you, done. But with Benedict, at the end of this, he better not know you're involved, not know your names, or think you're dead, because he'll kill you. And then he'll go to work on you.
That's why we have to be very careful, very precise.
Well funded.
Yeah. You gotta be nuts, too. And you're gonna need a crew as nuts as you are. Who do you got in mind?
Welcome to Franchise Killer, a podcast where we pick movie franchises or wannabe franchises, review them film by film, and see where things went wrong. Or right. I'm the host, Reese. To my left is...
David.
And further to my left is...
Irina.
And right across from me...
Topher.
Your actual name, please?
Noah.
We do have listeners that want to know your name. So the joke is cool, and then the name.
Is the joke cool, though? I don't,
Yeah.
I like the joke.
I don't know if that's the right...
And way off in a distant land, we have...
AJ.
And today we're talking about Ocean's 11. Not the 1960 original, but the 2001 film directed by Steven Soderbergh, who has also directed Sex, Lies, and Videotape, Traffic, Aaron Brockovich, The Ocean's Trilogy, Contagion, Magic Mike, Side Effects, and Logan Lucky. He's directed some other films too, but he has such a long list that I'm leaving some of the other ones off. Not to say that they're bad. It's just those are the heavy hitters that I noticed.
Amen.
Even the heavy hitters, they're not the biggest names out there.
Well, this guy, he pumps out movies. Like, he's released 2 movies in a year before. For a time, he would actually release, like, 1 a year almost, which I can't even imagine how you have that kind of output.
Whatever he's doing, I'm waiting for Magic Mike 3, okay?
So he didn't direct
we all?
20,000 Leagues Under the Sea?
No, he did not direct that. Why do you bring that up, AJ?
I don't know. Body of water and a number. I was a little confused.
Oh, you've been confused
A lot.
quite frequently,
but somehow still managed to keep up with the rest of us.
That's true. You managed to watch something, so I'll give you a pat on the back for that. The movie Ocean's 11, not 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, stars George Clooney, Brad Pitt, Julia Roberts, Bernie Mac, Matt Damon, Elliot Gould, Don Cheadle, Casey Affleck, Topher Grace, Scott Caan, Andy Garcia, Xiaobo Qin, Eddie Jemison, and Carl Rayner. And the screenplay was written by Ted Griffin.
Easy.
Yeah.
I think he wrote the
No
screenplay
problem.
for the original, or based on the original movie.
So on this podcast, we first go over our thoughts on the film before revisiting it for the episode. Then we dive into the story, break it down bit by bit, and talk about the more significant moments. Then towards the end of the show, we give our brief reviews and numbered scores, along with an analysis on the health of the franchise and whether or not this film hurt it. So you guys, had y'all seen Ocean's 11 before this episode? David?
No, I actually have not. I remember seeing this plastered everywhere when it came out, though. I remember driving around and seeing it as a kid, but I never actually went and saw it in person.
Okay. Irina?
Nope.
Nope. Noah?
Opposite, David. I saw it out of person.
I hate you. Okay. I feel like I'm going to leave all of your jokes
I hate you. Don't do that.
complete silence.
No, I hadn't seen it.
Okay. So AJ, had you seen it?
Yes, I had. Actually, same story as me watching the Now You See Me duo, but...
Oh, okay.
So it was kind of on in the background, and you saw it, and you're like, I'm going to go see that.
No, it was more of my cousin, saying, you haven't seen this movie? What's wrong with you? So I watched it.
Gotcha.
This movie is, I've seen bits and pieces of it, and as I was watching it again, I was like, oh yeah, I remember this part. I don't think I've ever seen the movie fully front to back, but I recognized individual scenes and sequences. Yeah, for some reason, this is a big oversight for all of us. None of us have seen, except for AJ, the Ocean's 11, any of the movies, really, right?
haven't.
I mean, unless you've seen. I mean, have any of y'all seen the sequels? I doubt
No.
it.
I did start, I feel like 12 or 13, and I watched the first 15 minutes and realized I have no idea what's going on, and then I stopped it, and that was it.
That was my other question: is whether or not it's like the story is like a through line from movie to movie.
I
or-
imagine it is, since they're all oceans.
A little bit. They each stand alone. So I have seen the 2 sequels, and I did rewatch the 1960 Ratpack version as well, just for kicks. But so there's a connected, overarching continuity, so to speak.
Yeah.
But
All
each
right.
have their own little heists, or big heists rather.
Yeah, before we go into the story, this is one of those cases where it does seem like it was the right decision to remake the movie, because I read that the original's not as strong.
It's like it was more just popular because the people in it were popular.
Yeah.
And they were just really kind of riding that wave at the time, but they weren't really all of them great people to work with.
Yeah, I did.
I was just saying, Irina's right. It was basically a publicity piece to pump up the Rat Pack.
Yeah.
I saw the Rotten Tomato scores on that one, which is a very interesting critic to audience score. I think the critics were like high
was like
20s,
40%
low
or
30s.
something.
No, it was lower. It was in the 30s, I think. Low 30s. You can correct me if I'm wrong. But the audience score was in the 80s, which I guess that shows that cinematically it's not very crazy. You know, they're not doing too much, but the audience loved the Rat Pack.
Yeah. From what
Correction, David, 48%.
I was
Yeah.
incorrect.
It's
Correct
actually
me if I'm
really unfortunate because from what I heard, the writer for the story actually had the story first. It wasn't going to be to pump them up, but he went to Peter Lawford, I think, is that his name? And he said, I would like you to star in this. And the guy, Peter Lawford, said, like, I won't unless I have some sort of influence on it. And so then after that, the writer tried to find another person or another company to back up his screenplay, basically.
Okay.
And they all turned him down. So he went back to Peter Lawford, and then what you get is sort of more influenced by the already celebrities than what the original concept was.
So the
I
writer
guess.
didn't really get much input as he wanted.
Yeah, he got his movie made, but he didn't have as much influence over it as he might have before.
Sounds like a usual
So-
circumstance with
Yeah.
studios.
It's not a terrible
All right,
movie,
so-
don't get me wrong, but it
Yeah.
does rest on the laurels of the celebrity of the actors.
How much do they sing in the movie?
A little
A
bit.
few times.
A
Yeah.
little bit. I mean, if I'm watching the Rat Pack in a movie, I better hear Dean Martin sing a song
You
at
mostly
least
hear
once.
Dean Martin singing "Kick in the Head," basically.
All right, I'll take it.
All right, are y'all ready to bust into the story here?
Bust a move.
Please state your name for the record.
Daniel Ocean.
You have been implicated in over a dozen other confidence schemes and frauds. What do you think you would do if released?
I don't know. How much do you guys make a year? It's never been done before.
You want to knock over a casino? 3 casinos?
You gotta be nuts.
Exactly. This place houses a security system that rivals most nuclear missile silos.
Smash and grab job, huh?
Slightly more complicated than that.
Oh, yeah. You'd need at least a dozen guys doing a combination of cons.
10 ought to do it, don't you think? You think we need one more? You think we need one more? All right, we'll get one more.
We're just supposed to walk out of there with $150 million in cash without getting stopped?
Yeah.
Following his release from prison, Danny Ocean violates his parole by traveling to California to meet his old partner in crime, Rusty Ryan, to propose a heist. The two go to Las Vegas to find funding for the plan from former casino owner Ruben Tishkoff. The ambitious heist involves robbing the Bellagio, the Mirage, and the MGM Grand casinos. Ruben's familiarity with casino security makes him very reluctant to get involved, but his desire for revenge on his rival, Terry Benedict, wins him over. Because the casinos are required by the Nevada Gaming Commission to have enough cash on hand to cover all their patrons' bets, the three predict that on the upcoming night of the highly anticipated boxing match, the Bellagio vault will contain more than $150 million. Before we go into this, do any of y'all have any opinions on the director, Steven Soderbergh, and do any of y'all have any comments on his work? Do y'all like this director?
I can't say that I've watched a lot of his films.
Neither have I. Like, I know we're gonna get heavily criticized by. He has a huge fan base.
He has a kind of a similar story arc in his beginnings to Robert Rodriguez. Very dedicated to the art, the science of it. Also,
and kicked off with like an indie film.
Yeah, he wore a lot of hats in the production, so he was a very avid go-getter. Like he, takes charge of every aspect of the production. Taking the camera himself and squaring up the shots, doing the filmography, cinematography, choosing very specifically the film, the media. So I learned a lot, looking into him for this movie, and really respect him for that. And he was one of the early adopters of digital to try to jump on, the latest and greatest technology. So,
right.
So I know we talked about some of his movies, but other than the Ocean series, what would you say is his next biggest movie?
Logan Lucky, maybe, or
that actually wasn't a huge success. I would say probably Aaron Brockovich.
Yeah, that's right.
Or
actually, the same year he got the two. It was Aaron Brockovich and something else were like number one and
Traffic.
Yeah.
And I do think with current events, Contagion has shot up there as one of his bigger ones as well. And I really like Contagion.
Wait, was Julia Roberts in Aaron Brockovich?
Yes.
Okay, I did hear about that one. So I haven't seen it, but
well, it's good you've heard about it.
That's a name, right?
Well, honestly, a lot of his movies I have definitely heard of, but for some reason just haven't really watched. So
other than Magic Mike,
I'll have to do some homework then. On that.
One thing I have noticed, and it's evident in this movie, while this is a big budget movie, it still has that almost kind of handheld indie feel to it in a sense, even though the stars are huge and the production is huge.
Yeah,
Right.
it's almost as if it's a huge movie.
he specifically did want it to have that really smooth, suave, polished, glitz to it, but also take a little bit of that edge off. And I think that he found that balance for sure.
Yeah.
It's that down to earth feeling. It might have a.
He used a lot of
large
yellow
budget.
light to help, kind of that hominess, that coziness a little bit.
Yeah, he did.
So what do we think of the cast that he's assembled for this movie? At least in this opening sequence, we don't see everyone here, but we get George Clooney as Danny Ocean. We get Rusty, played by Brad Pitt. Bernie Mac. Clearly, in this movie, I just get the impression that it was like, let's get literally every big name right now and just throw them all in a movie together.
It's funny you say that. I'm sure you've looked this up too, because it's probably plastered all over IMDb facts. But they had actually more people they planned on having in this movie.
Yeah.
And I think the original plan was not even to have George Clooney as the lead. I believe it was going to be Bruce Willis, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
That sounds
And Wahlberg
wrong.
instead of Matt Damon.
Yeah.
And then there's the two actors that are they the brothers in this? I can't remember their names because they're the more the comedic value. But guess who originally was going to be playing those roles?
Who?
I know Irina knows. Reese, do you know?
No, I don't know.
Irina?
Go.
All right, it's Owen and Luke Wilson. They were actually originally supposed to
That
play
would
the
have been
two
pretty
brothers.
good.
That
I
would have
still
been-
liked them, but that would have been good.
That would have
too.
been better.
And can you guys
I
guess
think.
what they decided to do instead of this?
What? Just
So,
say it.
oh man, no one's playing the game with me. Come
No,
on,
Wedding
Reese, it's
Crashers.
2001. No, not Wedding Crashers. 2001, it was The Royal Tenenbaums by Wes Anderson.
Oh, Bill Murray was not in this movie because of that as well.
Yeah, there was actually another actor too. I think it was what's his name, Donald Glover? No, Danny Glover. Sorry, I was getting mixed up.
A little bit of an age
you,
difference.
You messed up so hard that I lost my train of
It
thought.
wasn't that bad. Donald Glover and Danny Glover are pretty close in name.
In name, but not in person.
No, not at all. They're very different people.
All right.
Okay, so I have a problem with this movie right from the start. I don't get a clear motivation as to why Danny Ocean is going right back into the heist game upon being released from prison.
He just jumped right into it.
I don't think the motivation is there. You do learn it a little later on, and I still don't feel like it's good enough.
Yeah.
It's just like, I just want to do this. It's in my blood, and I'm just going to do it.
I don't have so much of a problem of him jumping right into it because his character is supposed to be sort of, he already has this idea and he's really comfortable with him being able to pull it off. But I do think the motivation is a little lacking.
Mm-hmm.
I get it, but at the same time, for the sake of the film, it's kind of weak. So
I think it might have been better if they had just shown him getting caught in perhaps a little bit of strife with his ex-wife.
Yeah, they did
I don't mind it so
sort of
much.
bring it up when he was leaving the prison. Not that he was, super spiteful, but the reason he got caught to begin with was because of his wife. So I guess they kind of relay back to it. But
I actually find him to be unlikable. I think he's secretly the villain of this movie, but it's framed that he's the protagonist.
Whoa.
I can
he's
see how
very
you got there,
selfish.
yeah.
He's dragging all these people with him on this impossible mission because he's butthurt about his wife dating this other guy.
Interesting.
And that's literally it. But
No, I
know I'm getting ahead of myself with the story, but I don't like Danny Ocean.
So I'll kind of agree with you. I don't think Danny Ocean is a good guy, but I will say the villain is actually a worse guy.
He is worse, but you don't. We'll get to him, but you don't. You still don't learn much about him.
Yeah. Were you going to include something there, AJ?
Yeah, I guess I was on board a little bit that I was like, okay, this is this guy's identity. He's a criminal. He's going to lie for his parole hearing, but I don't know. That was just like, that's who he is, and that's who he's always going to be. Maybe it was, there's a little bit of that in the original with Frank Sinatra and his wife. Like, basically, he was choosing that way of life over her. And he was a little bit more on the nose about, I'm never going to change. This is how I am. But it's interesting that you say that because part of the reason that I guess I was behind the curve on seeing these movies because I have a little bit of an aversion to seeing big names like George Clooney, Brad Pitt, that kind of thing. And, just being, I guess, counterculture or something like that. But I was actually on board with, Clooney's bravado and swagger and suaveness.
He definitely has the swagger, and he can carry this movie. I just don't find him likable, and I'm not
in a good way or in a bad way, because I think there is a good way that you can be unlikable.
He's not framed to be a bad guy,
Right.
Yes.
but he's framed as like he's a career criminal who is in it for number one. Yeah. He's charming though, and that's what makes you kind of root for him.
So it's more of a writing problem because in the end, the actor is doing his job and doing a very good job at it, which is why it's enjoyable. But because of the way they framed it, you don't like what they wrote about his character.
I like his character perfectly well, but I agree that based on his actions, they are morally questionable.
Aren't they all morally questionable, though, if you think about it? They're all criminals.
Yeah, but usually whenever you see a heist movie, it's almost like a Robin Hood kind of situation. And this one,
Robin Hood for yourself.
I don't know.
I need this money.
I think it's also a stylistic
I
choice
earned it.
that Soderbergh, he really wants to keep the pace flowing, keep you moving, get you swept up in the whirlwind, just the action-y instead of character development kind of thing.
Yeah.
What does save it for me, though, is I think the dialogue is snappy. It's well written. I enjoy all of the interactions between the characters.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I just, there's no beating heart behind it.
I do like that there are several times it shows you they are aware of the big cast that they have. And one of those is the fact that Rusty is found teaching lesser celebrities how to...
Yeah.
Play
and they're
the
all
game.
like stars of like TV shows.
Yeah,
in
they're
real
all
life.
TV show stars. And obviously Brad Pitt and George Clooney are the heavy hitters in this room, but they're playing essentially nobodies in the celebrity world.
Yeah.
So I think that to me was a fun little joke that we are aware of how huge these people are.
Brad Pitt is Rusty. I think this movie, from an aesthetic standpoint, is timeless, except for Rusty, who he's the only one who looks like early 2000s. It's his haircut.
Oh, man.
The goatee. He's got this dumb tattoo that you can tell, like this tribal-looking tattoo on his hand that you never see, and it's like, what is this guy?
Well, and also, whenever you see him on screen, you know what he's doing. He's eating food. Every single
I think he's
scene.
supposed to be the identifiable one at the time.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think directors make actors eat food when they don't look like they're comfortable on the set. It gives them like another thing to do while
Yeah.
they're
So
acting.
I was actually talking to Irene about this earlier, and it's not necessarily that they do that for actors who are uncomfortable. It is a typical thing for them to do when there is a person-to-person dialogue, if it's just one-on-one, because when you're just talking to somebody face-to-face, it's boring.
Yeah.
So having them do something is more natural. So, for example, when they meet Saul, he's peeling an orange. Whenever anyone is talking, someone's smoking a cigar or tamping down a pipe, like in Tarantino movies, there's lots of ways that makes it feel more natural. And for some reason, Rusty, it was eating food every single scene.
That was
It might
definitely
be a
his
little bit of that
character
in-
bit. Like he ate like something like 40 shrimp when
Julia Roberts
later,
came out.
Julia Roberts first comes in. Like they had to retake so many times that he ate like 40 shrimp on set.
That's so strange.
What a boring performance. Sorry. What is he?
He helps the plot move along. That's what he does.
Which one are you talking about?
He's assistant
Rusty,
to the regional
Brad Pitt.
manager.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, they had him do that whole poker scene at the beginning, and then that didn't follow up.
I think
in the
he's supposed to be
thing well.
helping more with the master plan, kind
Yeah.
of organizing people to do what they need to
He's
do.
the number 2.
He's the grounding force for Danny.
Yeah.
I do like that his interactions with Danny, well, he doesn't really do anything. He's mostly silent, but Danny can always read what he's thinking.
Yeah.
You want me to get another guy? You want me to get another guy?
that's
I'll
the-
get another guy.
That's the best line in the movie.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Really?
Yeah.
I think that's the best one.
They had a couple lines that I actually really liked in this. There were some bad ones too, but there's a lot of good dialogue in this.
I felt like the situations in which you could say that arguably is a bad line, I felt like it fit in line with the kind of movie that it was.
How about Don Cheadle though?
Okay,
And we're
that's
not
different.
there yet.
That's
all
a
right,
good-
all right,
Get
all
ahead of
right.
ourselves.
That's
We probably should move on with our
Oh
story.
wait, there
here.
is something I wanted to bring up. I don't know if
didn't
we
really
touched on
talk
it
too
that
much about
much
the
in this one, but are we at the point where they're actually introducing all the other characters? Have we gotten? to
We're
it?
like halfway
not
through
quite.
it. They're like some of them are announced and some of them are introduced and some aren't.
Okay. Well, we can go to the next part. It doesn't really matter.
Like I don't think we're at Matt Damon yet.
In which case, let's move on because that's exactly what I was going to bring up.
Danny and Rusty recruit 8 former colleagues and criminal specialists. Linus Caldwell, a young and talented pickpocket. Frank Catton, a casino worker and con man. Virgil and Turk Malloy, a pair of gifted mechanics. Livingston Dell, an electronics and surveillance expert. Basher Tar, an explosives expert. Saul Bloom, an elderly con man. And the amazing Yin, an accomplished acrobat. The team carries out reconnaissance at the Bellagio to learn as much as possible about the security, the routines, and the behaviors of the casino staff and the building itself. They also create a precise replica of the vault with which to practice maneuvering through its formidable security systems. During this planning phase, the team discovers that Danny's ex-wife, Tess, is Benedict's girlfriend. Rusty urges Danny to give up on the plan, believing Danny incapable of sound judgment while Tess is involved in sensing an ulterior motive.
So now we learn the rest of the team.
Look, I could never be in this heist game. Like, it just is too much setup work, not enough payoff. I don't care how much money I'm getting on the other end. Like, I will.
So what you're saying is you're lazy.
Yes,
That's what
and
I got
scared,
out of that.
and a coward.
The thing
I would totally do this.
I think, okay, part of me really enjoys these kinds of movies, but the other part is looking at their plans that they formulate and thinking there is too much chance involved in a lot of these.
I know.
Like,
And
when the
they-
scenario you came up with, it's like a 50-50 at best.
And when they're
Yeah.
the my main sticking point with their plan was they brought in all these other contractors, I'm guessing, to build this replica. Who are like,
Yeah.
what are those contractors? Are they signing a non-disclosure
I know.
agreement or something?
Well,
Like, we're
really
not going to
trust
tell
them.
anyone that they're
Well, no
making
one's
this.
going to know, though. They don't know what they're building. For all they know, it could just be any random
I think-
sort of vault.
Yeah, you could also talk about the fact that they have a huge benefactor now, too. Someone that used to own that casino that is now owned by Benedict. So he could be getting all of these resources that they need.
Yeah,
So.
That's
well,
true.
He definitely is.
I think it's almost a little realistic where it's like, yeah, you grease enough palms and you can get away with whatever. Like the security guard,
Yeah.
he's like, what are y'all doing? Are y'all done yet? He's like, well, we're going to take these blueprints home. Is that okay? It's like, yeah, sure, whatever you need.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
you slip enough greenbacks in someone's pocket, then they'll look the other way, I guess.
True. Still, like, you wanted to talk about Linus, David?
Oh, man, there's a lot of things we could talk about. It was actually not Linus in that scene that I wanted to talk about, but the fact that the way they were portraying him as the pickpocket and the stylistic choice to have that early 2000s choppy I don't even know how you would describe that.
Yeah, that editing choice was weird.
What was it you compared it to, David?
It's the commercial. You wouldn't steal a handbag.
Yeah,
You wouldn't
exactly.
steal a cop's
That's
helmet
exactly
and crap
what
in
it looked like.
Yeah, it's exactly what it looked like, where it's like frame by frame, you could see what's happening. You're like, oh, that's dating this movie hardcore.
It's
I feel
there's
like
a technique called step printing that was used for slow motion. It has to do with the frame rate, where film they used 24 frames per second. Now obviously our TVs are using 60 hertz, 120 hertz panels, so it does date it a little bit because of the technology that we're viewing it on now. Whereas if you saw that on a CRT, then you're probably not going to be as jarred by that effect.
I
to a
never
certain
would have
extent.
guessed that.
I remember seeing it in a lot of like early 2000s action epics.
Yeah.
Like it's in Gladiator, it's in Kingdom of Heaven, it's in
It goes
Lord of
all
the
the way
Rings
back to
even
like
at
the
times.
80s with music videos and stuff like that. And it was an intentional
Yeah.
choice that Soderbergh, he chose like a 45-degree shutter angle for that effect, for like the kind of flashback. So
It didn't bother me really.
It does bother me, and it's mostly just because they chose one moment to do that. It's not even a very cool moment. It's
Yeah,
just
but-
kind of him stealing someone's pocketbook.
What's
and-
weird about me is I think they're trying to show him stealing something through Danny Ocean's vision, and I'm just thinking, like, is this how this guy sees people pickpocketing in this chip?
It's like he notices
choppy, yeah.
Dude, that's kind of the same exact situation that happens in Now You See Me. With the little pickpocket at the very beginning, and like,
Oh, yeah.
I see a pickpocket. Let me grab this one.
I think it's weirdly done better in that movie, though.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah,
Danny
right.
Ocean just has eye problems,
Only-
and he only sees in 60 hertz.
Oh,
I'd
that
say
would-
it's
I
only
would
done
die.
better simply because of technology.
actually,
Yeah.
the beginning of Gladiator, that early battle, they used that as well to kind of
Yeah, that's what Reese was saying, I think.
Yeah, I
it's
mentioned
Ridley
Ridley
Gladiator.
Scott. Yeah, it was like it kind of helps things speed along while giving that slow motion feel. So yeah, it didn't really
Yeah.
land here. I think it's kind of dated. It shows its
Yeah.
its age, I guess.
Yeah, and I think we're only
yeah.
talking about it so much because this movie doesn't implement a lot of those tricks that date it. But
Yeah.
in this specific moment,
It
it was like,
does,
yeah,
yeah.
oh, there's that early 2000s.
It just really stands out, and it's not utilized at any other point, so that's why it's such a big
Right.
deal to me.
yeah. Another character who's just bland for me, Linus.
Matt Damon.
Yeah,
the
he's just
Linus
okay.
guy.
Yep, it's Matt Damon. I don't really see him doing anything too exceptional here.
I think it's because, and I guess he was doing the Bourne movies at this time, so he was big, but in this movie, he's playing this young gun who's new, so he's almost just kind of like a lackey until he's needed.
Yeah.
So I think he did what he was supposed to do, but they could have done it with anybody.
Yeah, it's just weird. He was a huge star at this point.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
Good Will Hunting.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
in the
weird.
Bourne series, yeah.
Well, devil's
So-
advocate. I mean, you have
Okay.
so many big names in this. Like, if everyone has a big personality, like Basher, Don Cheadle's character, then I feel like there's going to be too much clashing on screen.
Yeah, but you have Matt Damon's one of the top 3 build. He's like above the title of the movie.
Right.
Is he really?
Yeah, so it's like you have your big 3. It's Brad Pitt, George Clooney, Matt Damon. Only one of those for me is remotely interesting, and that's Danny / George Clooney. You have your more interesting characters under the billing, which is strange.
And you have some of them that should be on the billing, but aren't on there.
Yeah, which leads me to...
Well, do you mind if I say about Matt Damon real quick?
Go for it.
I think first half he's somewhat uninteresting, but then once he's given more to do, he becomes a little more interesting, and that starts happening whenever he has to kind of be that investigator or whatever.
Yeah, I like
guy
that. I
was.
do like that
He
sequence.
plays for the Nevada Gaming Commission.
Yeah. I found that to be kind of amusing. And
No,
I
he was
enjoyed
great at that scene.
it. Yeah.
He picked up that talent rather quickly when he's just meant to be the pickpocket.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Sorry.
it had to be an acting sesh, so...
Yeah.
I know you're talking about the billing, by the way, and the top 3 named actors. So was his name Basher, played by Don Cheadle? He actually was trying really hard to be on the top bill as a name. Like, so on the cover, he wanted to have his name above the title, and basically the director was like, "No, we're not doing that." And he's like, "Fine, then I don't want to be credited at all." So if you actually look in the credits, you're not going to see Don Cheadle's name on there. He refused to be on it.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, because he wanted to be up above there. He felt like he deserved it, and he did. He did because he's a big slice of this movie. But the issue I'm seeing with this movie, and I have many, but another one is that I feel like the director or whoever the casting agent was, or whoever was putting together this cast, we're thinking more about, oh, look at all these big names together. Look at how good they sound together when we run through this entire cast. And they didn't think about how appropriate an actor would be for a certain role. Which it can be done. You go to like Quentin Tarantino or Martin Scorsese, they have massive casts. Yeah, Wes Anderson. And all of the characters, they fit in those roles and they're memorable. In this one, you've got this massive cast and I don't feel like he's doing a lot with them.
Also on top of that, you also look at all the different roles in this movie and you think like, well, that person's role kind of seems superfluous to this movie. He feels like he shouldn't have to be here. Like that guy that they meet with at the beginning, who's from Friends as Ross's dad. I can't remember what his name is.
Oh, he's the benefactor, yeah.
Yeah, he's the benefactor, but like...
He's more interesting to me, though.
I actually think his was
only
good.
because he looks interesting, but when you think about his role on the team, he doesn't need to be there.
Yeah.
Well, the character needs to be there. Whether or not the actor needs to be there is a different
Why does the
story.
character need to be
He's
there?
the benefactor. He's the
Yeah.
one that's allowing them to even get all this equipment.
How else would
I
they
think.
do it?
I like
Well, yeah,
that
but he
scene.
does
I
after
love-
that. They
I-
don't need him there.
I actually really like that scene though, where he's like,
I know what
y'all
you're
are
gonna
y'all
say."
are insane. Y'all are
Yeah.
insane for doing this." And then they say who the name is of the person's casinos that they're robbing. It's Terry, and he's like, "Wait, okay, now I'm interested."
Yeah. See, I really like that, but then he doesn't really do anything else the rest
Actually,
of the
one
movie.
of my
but he's-
other favorite lines,
No, go ahead.
is from him when he is outside whenever they get everybody together in Las Vegas for the first time, and everyone goes inside after George Clooney gives him the ultimatum, like, come inside or leave. And Matt Damon's sitting outside, and he walks like, "Oh, you from Chicago? Oh, yeah, cool. You like it over there? Yeah? Get the hell inside."
Yeah.
Yeah,
what the
that
hell
was
are you
kinda
doing?
funny.
I
you
do
stole my
think
line
he's
for the end.
necessary. I do think he's necessary because this is basically an investment that he's working with. So he's protecting his investment and he has to be there because this is a risk of getting his name out there if they mess up, you know, because he did kind of help spearhead this whole endeavor. So, and Benedict is apparently a dangerous guy to cross. So I get it. I understand why he would be there. I would want to protect my investment.
All right. More what I'm getting at is that I feel like a number of them should have had more to do. One of the guys on the team, he does the cards and like they have to...
Are you... what?
Gosh, what's his name? Frank, there you go. Him. He's another character that I felt like, okay, they got this guy who's supposed to be an important member of their team, but he's just there for this one small component of it. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying?
The thing is,
Yeah,
there's
sorry,
so many
Andy.
moving components that are happening simultaneously that even at the smallest level, they're pulling attention away from the security detail or the team, causing a distraction at one point to allow someone to slip in the elevator at another point. Like, it's all those little moving pieces that, you know, form a bigger whole. They don't have a drastic, important, or, you know, one single thing that they're doing right at that moment, but they mesh together as a team to help things move along, move forward.
I think to me, having this large group is personally believable because if you're trying to crack into this safe and into this casino where they have cameras everywhere and they have high security, your biggest issue is people recognizing you. And so if you have a small team of people that are constantly having to go in and out, they're going to notice you and they're going to notice what you're doing. So I get it. Like, it makes sense to me. I think it's hard to organize all of that and give them, I don't know, more time on screen, but it makes sense.
And even though Bernie Mac it doesn't show him as much as some of the others, he actually, I would say, arguably has the most important role, or one of the most important roles, because...
The inside job.
Exactly. He came from a casino in New Jersey, so he came from Atlantic City. He was their first person who actually could work inside of the casino.
Yeah.
So he had a lot of more inside access, and he was kind of a part of the pivotal scene that got them in contact with the main antagonist.
Sure, you can like amount their role to being important in some way, but more what I'm getting at is that it felt like the characters that we were focusing on had a lot more screen time for maybe not being as integral to the success.
So his was that he had an integral part, but not as much screen time.
Yeah, so it's kind of like based on the screen time they get and what they do, it just seems like their character is superfluous. Like, why not just have one of the main characters do that.
Well,
And
no
they're
one
taking
could do
up
this.
taking up too much real estate, is what you're saying.
Yeah,
That the main
like-
character could be building his character more off of by having that.
Yeah, so it's like they're being spread too thin almost.
Yeah.
Like they have all these names, but all of this could have been done by like a couple of things could have been done by one character.
And that's
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. Like
get it.
I feel like in the production of this movie, they're so drawn to like having just the most stacked cast that you
Yeah.
could. Like you've literally got at the beginning of this episode, I listed them off. I had to. It was
a breath,
just
yeah.
insane.
Yeah,
like
it's
there's
a
so
lot.
many people in this movie.
How do you balance that?
I also think they could have set up the villain to seem a little more villainous.
Oh,
at
I
first you're
disagree.
Okay.
I thought he was very villainous.
really
Oh yeah.
how.
What was that? AJ, you had something to say?
Well, I was just in response to Noah's point, spreading the cast too thin or the screen time too thin across too many characters. I feel like that almost, in my opinion, gives it more of a collaborative feel, a team effort that, like Rena says, makes it more believable versus the Four Horsemen. And Now You See Me, you have four people doing these crazy heists by themselves. Here you've got a whole working, crew that's, working in tandem to get things done little by
That
little.
is the alternative, isn't it? Having like those movies in Now You See Me where it was just 4 people doing everything rather than
Well,
a heist.
5
team.
people.
Okay.
So another example. I think there is a way to do this. I'm not against massive casts. I think it works in certain
Marvel
movies.
is an example.
You just have to give each person something distinctive and memorable.
That's what I'm saying.
And the thing, like you think about, Avengers Endgame, that's like the most cast in any movie ever.
Yeah.
And I would say almost all those characters, distinctive and memorable. Granted, they've had like 25 movies to build up these characters, so maybe that's not as good of an example. But let's say Django Unchained, like we just covered, or Hateful Eight. You've got all these actors and
Actually,
actresses in
Hateful
this
Eight's a
movie,
great example.
and they all are distinctive, and in some weird way like and identify with all of them.
Hateful Eight also had the luxury of like 3 hours, so
True.
In one room, there
I
you
get
don't
your
have
point.
too much
And then where they do
Yeah.
spend their time and effort, whereas like the scene at the car dealership with Bernie Mac I feel like that could have been cut in favor of other things.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
What was he doing
completely
exactly to get him to
He
work
squeezed his
down the
hand hard.
price?
Yeah, see, I was so confused by that.
I was confused by that too. Like, how is is he just unnerving him by squeezing his hand? Like,
Yep.
I honestly, in real life, if you did that, he'd be like, "Sir, please let go of my hand and leave the building."
Yeah. That.
Oh.
So I get your point.
So we do have a couple other cast members that I'd like to touch on before we move on. So we've got Basher, I think Don Cheadle.
Yes.
Tossa.
putting
What
on
are you
that-
talking about, Gunnar? You don't look my egg hit. I'm over here doing my best job I can do.
And here's the point at
That
which
was
we cut.
very, very good.
Tell me how much worse was that than Don Cheadle?
No, actually,
that was
not,
worse, but
not way
Not
too
way
much
worse.
worse. In fact, I think Don Cheadle wasn't happy with his accent in that movie.
I don't think anybody was.
Well,
But-
I question the fact that they decided to give him a British accent in the
the
first
thing, though,
place.
I like his energy in this movie.
Yes. Yeah.
Like I think
he was a character.
He's yeah.
he has the most energy of.
Even though also arguably a villain because he literally set off a bomb when those police were like arresting him. I'm just
Not
wondering.
even
Like,
No.
arguably, he
Don Cheadle
absolutely
did.
is.
No, Don Cheadle did not set up those bombs. That was actually our team. That's Ocean's 11 team doing that. That
Yeah.
was a distraction.
these guys are terrorists.
Yes, all of them are bad. That's why I said arguably everybody in this is bad.
Yeah. And, well, he almost literally EMPs an entire city.
No, he literally did EMP an
Yeah,
entire
which that whole
Well,
scene was pretty
yeah.
cheesy too. Like, let's get a giant sci-fi EMP from.
Yeah, it looked
Yeah.
like that thing that they held the Tesseract in event.
Yeah.
Just this massive.
Oh, yeah.
If
that's like, what is
anything,
this?
the only purpose I think that served was to try and kind of reference the original film because they also did the heist during a blackout.
Oh, really?
It has a different purpose in this film, but it's more. It kind of to me it just felt more like a nodding at that film,
Yeah.
even though it's unnecessary.
All right.
It was
think
also
about
to
it.
throw a wrench in the whole, scheme of things. So, like, if you have a movie where
Yeah.
everything goes perfectly, then you're going to be disinterested.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, remind me again, why did the whole city have to go down and not just...
They're like, can you do a whole city?
I think maybe it would
so.
just be too obvious if it were that one building or
Okay.
that one section.
All right,
I'm not sure exactly.
At this point in the movie, whenever they did need to do it, wouldn't have already been obvious though, you know?
Maybe. I don't know.
Like the dude's already at the well, we haven't got to this part yet. So
the one other cast member I want to call out is Carl Reiner as Saul Bloom.
Yes.
I love him.
Yeah, I really liked this
He's
guy.
my favorite,
too.
I think.
And this is another case of like, I thought he was more interesting than any of the top billed.
that's what I was
actors.
thinking.
Like I like this guy. I like following him.
Yeah.
I love the scene where he's getting in. Even though this is later on, I'll save
Yeah.
it. But when he's getting into the accent to perform
Yeah.
as a different character,
I think even just this actor's expressions and the way he says his lines, and even when he's not speaking, he's totally in character. And I just like this guy a lot.
Yes.
I don't know why.
Yeah, but I guess we have to go over the. We kind of passed over this. But
Yeah, we should-
The
we should-
motivations of
Danny Ocean.
Danny Ocean with his.
Tess.
Yeah.
Did
'cause-
we hit
Yes,
that?
we did.
Okay.
That's
so
in this.
Then we do get to.
Yeah.
Has Julia Roberts walked down that staircase
Yeah,
yet?
yes. Yeah. we
Okay,
got
so
that.
yeah, also Julia Roberts is in this movie.
Yeah,
add it
that
to
was
the
that
list.
was just a big like. Wait, she's in this?
I like her and Danny. I think the two actors have good potential
They
on
have good
screen.
chemistry, yeah.
But there isn't a lot of time for that, and also her motivations and her as an actress, the things she was required to do just didn't seem like much for
Yeah,
an
and
actress
also
of her
she,
caliber.
She is way too intelligent to get involved with these two scumbags
I
who
know,
just seem to
right?
be like ping-ponging her back and forth.
I could
Like-
understand her being the ex of, Danny Ocean. That makes a lot of sense. And they look like they work as a couple, but to go to this casino owner who's obviously I don't really get that relationship, and how she's like, he doesn't make me cry or something. Like that's her reason for being with
And also
him.
he can't like show any sort of connection or affection in front of any camera to her, which I didn't think that was explained really.
Not really. I
either?
think he's I don't know.
Can we
I'm not sure.
talk real quick about the villain? I think David and I.
Andy Garcia.
Yeah.
I think that's more in the next part, though. Honestly.
Well, no. Well, he's shown up at this point.
Yeah.
I do want to talk about him. We can talk about him real quick.
So I wanted to say I don't think he seemed too much like a villain up until the end. Like they at that point revealed, but throughout the movie they didn't have any visual cues to him being villainy. He like sticks to his schedule. He works hard. He like the only thing you have is that passing comment from the shady looking guy that's blinged out.
I see what you mean.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Actually, he is. So we do know that he is shady and does bad things later. You're right.
Yeah.
The only thing that I think made him more villainous is just the actor himself. I think he portrayed
he looks
as a
like
villain.
a villain.
Yeah.
He looks like what's the guy in the Sherlock movie with Robert Downey
Irina
Jr.?
said this.
I was thinking
Irina
the same
said
thing.
this
Yeah,
Mark
he looks
Strong.
like that guy,
Mark
except
Strong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He looks like him, but
A little
I guess-
more evil in my opinion.
I think they needed to. One of the issues with this movie is both Danny Ocean and Andy Garcia's character. I struggle remembering his name in this.
Benedict. Yeah.
Benedict.
They're just shades of gray, where it's like, okay, Danny Ocean's a career criminal, as we've established, and he's upset, and this other guy, Benedict,
A business criminal.
yeah, there wasn't enough meat on the bone there to establish like
villainy.
why we should not like this guy,
Yeah.
other than
That's why that's kind of.
I think that's exactly
Yeah.
the thing is, like,
point.
on the surface, his performance is like conveying, yes, I'm the villain of this movie,
Yeah.
but I want to know, like, why really are you the villain
Yeah.
of this movie? Like, I want to see you doing some underhanded deals that are really
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
like
Literally
the
does nothing,
closest
yeah.
you got is and I apologize, we're not to this part yet, is him having Danny Ocean beat up, but then suddenly he's like, well, you're free to go.
yeah.
But even then, we all know casinos do this. This is an actual thing casinos do. So is he that much worse than anybody
Well,
else? owning
Linus
a
says it
My-
outright that he's the type of guy who not only bankrupts you, but makes sure that your family and everyone you know is also bankrupt.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
There's a lot of
offhand
subtlety
comment
to his character.
is there.
I
Yeah.
like the direction they took. Like, some of the most dangerous guys are the ones that are the cold people in
Yeah.
control. I just feel like
Yeah.
they could have added some at the end where he just snaps and goes off the rails. Like that would have definitely
Yeah.
helped push this character into more of that evil side.
Yeah, I do admire like the subtle filmmaking, kind of just giving you those clues to pick up on.
Yeah.
I just don't. I feel like they could have been pushed in my face just a little closer.
Yeah.
Or maybe given a specific situation that
Show
happened.
another scenario.
Like you don't even have to visually show it. You could just instead of like a guy saying like, "Oh yeah, he's just gonna kill you," and then whatever. But you could just say like, have the main character say like, "Yeah, he's the guy that put me in jail and had like that's not what happened," but
something like that.
You could make it connected to him in some way, whereas that would actually make the story make sense. Why that guy's his rival? Why he wants to attack him.
So writing wise, it seems to be more the issue because I think Andy Garcia did a phenomenal performance in this
he's
for
good.
the little that he actually does.
I really like that scene at the diner where you know he's cool and collected, but also kind of sinister, but also not shoving Danny away.
Yeah.
In fact, Danny's kind of like the
Chauvinistic
in your
a little
face
bit.
sort of
D-bag in
being-
that situation.
Well, he
So-
looks like he's trying to steal
Yeah.
the girl back, and you know.
The thing I like about Danny Garcia in this is that he has this way of looking at the characters where you feel like he's kind of onto them, or at least suspicious of what they're doing.
Yeah.
And so I do feel like in this movie I did get those moments where I'm like, they're gonna be found out because this guy's
he even
just,
says it to Carl
Yeah.
Reiner straight up, and he's like, "And I just straight up don't trust you."
yeah. And so the way he looks at the characters is very much menacing and calculating.
Yeah.
So
The thing is, you can
I
tell
like
he's
about
that
him.
type of character who he's always got the wall up.
Yep,
Even
yep.
to what's her
Tess.
name, Julia Roberts,
Yeah.
Tess.
I think Soderbergh kind of takes the approach of, instead of telling you why this guy's bad or even showing you, he tries to do things in the background subtly with the ambiance to make you feel it. Like the way he does the lighting on the encounter between Danny and Tess, like, he uses the bounce lighting and the up lighting to make it that Hollywood kind of feel, whereas everyone else is, I don't know, he does the subtle approach, and maybe he doesn't do enough in your face to tell you.
Yeah.
I feel like he just kind of takes that approach of this. I want this to be a movie about feeling,
Yeah.
to bring you along with it.
I think and I do pick up on that feeling, and I think he did a good job with that. I also feel that the intention is this is a casino. Anyone that's here isn't necessarily a person of virtue, let's say. Like it's kind of that old Hollywood feeling where this was the place to go to just kind of live it up without any qualms and make connections. And it's usually just kind of understood that the rich ones are a bit jaded and corrupt, and seedy. So that's the impression I got. So it didn't really matter to me that he proved his villainy or not. I was just to me it was just understood that he's not necessarily a great guy. So.
Yeah. On the night of the fight, the plan is put into motion. Danny shows up at the Bellagio purposely to be seen by Benedict, who, as predicted, locks him in a storeroom with Bruiser, a bouncer. However, Bruiser is on Danny's payroll and allows him to access the vent system and join his team as they seize the vault. Rusty calls Benedict on a cell phone Danny dropped in Tess's coat earlier and tells him that unless he lets them have half of the money in the vault, they will blow it up. Benedict watches security footage confirming Rusty's claim. Benedict complies, having his bodyguards take the loaded duffel bags to a waiting van driven by remote control. However, Benedict has his men follow the van while he calls in a SWAT team to try to secure the vault. The SWAT team's arrival causes a shootout that sets off the explosives and incinerates the remaining cash. After affirming the premises is secure, the SWAT team collects their gear and departs. All right, so it's into the planning stages and execution of the heist. I do want to ask y'all, how do you believe that this is possible? Like, do you think the setup of this heist is well done? Like,
It's complicated because I think they did a good job conveying it. I think in realistic terms, no, because they needed some MacGuffins in a couple scenarios.
yeah, it seemed very kind of touch and go. Like,
Could you define MacGuffin real quick? Sorry.
No, so think about it as like the Tesseract in the Avengers. It's something
Yeah.
everyone's chasing after, something that everyone needs, and that's what's driving the plot.
Okay, well, maybe I used it incorrectly then, because
Yeah.
I'm using the
Were you
the
thinking like a
pinch-
miraculous circumstance?
Yeah, you know how we
type
talked
thing?
about
Almost-
how quantum
You mean
physics is kind of like the get out of jail free card?
Yeah.
Deus Ex Machina is what you're
Yep.
thinking of.
Is that what it's called?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, a Deus Ex Machina specifically is like a situation where it's like a miraculous hero situation comes in, saves the day. That's the end of the story.
The example that everyone uses is the Eagles from Lord of the Rings coming in at the very end and just
Yeah.
like it's like, oh,
kinda
awesome!
like
That's the last, or the ghosts at
I'm
the
going
end
to
of
stop
Return
you
of the
right
King
there
that just
before
come
we
in.
start a fight.
I was actually going to say that if they had the eagles in the beginning, those eagles would have been destroyed, though. Like, it was more like they were there at the exact right moment that they needed to be.
The thing is, there's nothing wrong with the Deus Ex Machina
Yeah.
if it's implemented well, and I think it's implemented well there.
or if it makes sense, it's set
I
up
think
the
for
right way.
for
Yeah.
me, a good example of that is always when some hacker throws out their computer and they're like, tap tap tap, I'm in. You know, like you don't.
So that is exactly kind of the vibe I got from this pinch or whatever they called it.
Yeah.
It's they didn't have an answer for how to do the power outage. They're like, there is this thing that can do the job that we need.
EMP.
Just steal it and then go use it.
So
I don't know.
here's the
And we'll have no problems with that.
Yeah.
to go on the other side of that. Would you want a movie that was more technical and really showed you how they did that, or would it drag down the pacing of this movie if they see? I think he made the decision like, oh, they don't need to know all that technical stuff.
Yeah.
We're just gonna blast through it.
I guess, yeah.
Well,
But then you have Girl with a Dragon Tattoo or any of those procedural
Yeah.
movies that David Fincher directs, and all that stuff's really interesting.
Yeah.
It's all depending on the mood that you're wanting out of this film.
I need more nanotechnology.
I'll talk on the real quick. I want to talk about just the heist itself and kind of the result of it.
Mm-hmm.
I happen to really enjoy this kind of stuff where it kind of shows the end where they've duped the guy and it shows you how, and you're like, oh yeah, get him.
I would have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for you kids and
Danny Ocean
dog.
and his team of
Ocean
10.
11.
One of my favorite parts of this movie that had me the most interested was when Danny Ocean is actually relaying this impossible mission to them. It's like, this is high risk, high reward. And he's just laying out the diagram of the Pelagio or, that to me is like, oh, how are they going to do this?
Yeah.
Like, that interests me.
Yeah, so my I think my main issue with it, and also I can ignore this for the sake of the movie because I like it, but if I'm being critical about it, is just the fact that their plan kind of relies on a number of question marks. Like, all right, so we're going to do this, and hopefully that distracts that person, and they'll do this. But they do it with a certainty that, like, yeah, it'll be fine.
Yeah.
And it's kind of just,
Flying by the seat of their pants.
yeah, exactly.
basically.
But it happens to work, you know?
And that's just, it's a movie,
Exactly. So it's just that kind of movie, and I enjoy that. And I think based on the result, everything makes sense except for the pincher, really. Like, some of these things could feasibly happen. It's just,
Yeah. There's a disconnect, though. Steven Soderbergh, his movies feel very realistic. The way they're filmed, the dialogue, it is cinematic, and it is heightened slightly. But there's certain aspects, like you're talking about the pincher, where it's just like, that seems a little out of place. But what about you guys? What did y'all think of the setup of the heist?
I enjoyed it. I do think I personally would like something a little more involved, because when they were going through the plans and everything they would have to maneuver through, essentially, I felt like a lot of it was almost sort of cut out of the middle to get to the big moments.
Yeah, did you have trouble with like the geography of everything?
I did.
Where it
I
was
did.
like, okay, they're robbing 3 casinos, and I get that all this money is down in this vault, down in
Yeah.
this huge cylinder. But still, I was like, okay, where exactly are they? What?
Yeah,
Where is
I
this
think
vault?
honestly it would have helped if they kind of nixed the whole "we're robbing 3 banks" thing, or at least made it more clear that it was all put together in this one massive bank,
Yep.
Because then you're thinking, wait, are they staying at one casino? Wait, they're in a hotel across from the... I don't know. Like, they're kind of all over the place.
Now that you say that, I actually didn't think about it too much, but now thinking about it, I'm kind of confused.
See, I keep forgetting that they're actually robbing 3 casinos.
Well, 3
You don't-
casinos, I thought, in my head, it was this weird, ambiguous vault that was somehow underground where all of the casinos.
That's what I thought it was. They're all
connected.
filtered into that
Yeah,
area.
exactly.
Yeah, and I think that is what it is.
They didn't explain
I'm pretty sure it is.
They didn't
Yeah.
explain that though. They didn't
But
show a diagram.
The
of
only
it.
so I thought that they were only robbing one place as well, and I thought, oh, maybe the next two are them robbing the other casinos. You know?
Yeah.
And
no,
then-
but it's not.
Yeah. Then I realized, wait, it's not.
See, okay,
so-
maybe this is also kind of the part of the movie where I started kind of lulling a little bit, and I watched it twice, and every time it came back around to the actual heist portion of it, I just started kind of checking my phone. I don't know why. If it's
Like, I enjoyed it. I kind of liked the aspect of, what was his name? The acrobat. The,
Yen.
Ken.
Chen.
Yeah. I
something
liked
like
his incorporation into this, and I kind of wanted to see more of that. I guess he only really was needed for that one little hop over, but
Yeah.
I don't know. Just seeing him a little more and what he was able to do would have been interesting. I think there was a moment that I brought up to David where I was kind of confused because this is a high stakes mission, but there seem to be a lot of loose ends that they don't really care about. For instance, the bellhop guys just kind of ditching their clothes in the elevator
Yeah, it
along
seemed,
with a dish or
that'd
something.
be a red flag if someone just discovered that
If
in
someone
2
saw
minutes
that,
later.
they would be like, that's suspicious. This is a really like high class.
They didn't even need to
Casino.
show that. They could have just had them show up later with.
There's
Yeah,
a
I
couple
know. I
times where
just-
the camera focused on
And
things
it's not-
a little too long, and I was kind of confused as to why.
And for the sake of the film, it's really not that big a deal. But it's just little things that kind of take you out of the experience, and you feel, well, that doesn't seem right, you know.
I'm curious
But
if
other than that, I enjoyed it.
those are intentionally there for a false sense of suspense. To like, oh no, are they going to get caught or that kind of thing?
You're probably right.
Could
Yeah,
be.
it's probably like trying to seed that doubt of them, succeeding.
To me, it came across as, oh, they changed out of their clothes. There's something else now.
Yeah, the heist is definitely not
that's all I
airtight.
got. Yeah, and
I-
that's fine.
Yeah, I think I got the impression early on, maybe I was more invested in, I don't know, the background of it or whatever, but I guess I got kind of the sense of the feeling that these guys, they're con artists, but a lot of cons are just, simple, they're not elegant. You
Yeah.
kind of rely on a lot of luck, and if it doesn't work out, you run away. But this is,
Yeah.
where Rusty's early on, we need a grease man, we need this kind of person, we need a whatever, the code slang for this kind of this con is. This is a bunch of small cons strung together, and hoping that you all together with a bit of luck, it's going to work out.
Yeah.
There's definitely an element of risk and danger to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
That's another
you're still
thing.
expecting something that's like, oh, a master plan that everything is,
Yeah.
accounted for.
Yeah, that's another thing that kind of irked me a little bit. I think Soderbergh could have played up the suspense a little bit more, because I feel like it's not quite there. I was never really nervous that they were gonna not get out of this with
Yeah.
all the money. It's cool seeing the plan put into action, but I wasn't like on the edge of my seat, worried for oh no. Is
I
this
had moments where I was thinking, oh, they're going to get caught, or this person's going to get caught. For instance, the one guy that we haven't mentioned at all, the engineering buff or the electric,
Yeah.
The guy on the
what
computers. And
what
such.
is that guy's name? The kind of anxious.
No, I know who
one.
wipes his forehead.
Yeah.
I
I
love
like
that
him.
too when
I
he like
liked
looks at the
him a
diagram.
lot.
and
Yeah,
it's
I like him a
Livingston?
lot.
I think
wiped out.
yes. And I think that one part when he's trying to leave and the guy is trying to
That was-
hail
okay,
him
yeah,
down, I was
that-
like, uh-oh.
That was a good scene. It's like, oh yeah, they're working great.
It works
Well,
fantastic.
yeah, I think one of the things that they made sure to do as far as tension goes is it looked like they set up kind of each character was having some sort of issue. Like there were, holes in the boat at almost every level. So
Yeah.
it made you think like,
Yeah.
oh, maybe it's
I was
not running smoothly. Like the guy with the stomach ulcers started getting sick. The
Yeah.
Saul.
acrobat guy hurt his hand pretty bad. The,
messes up that flip. I was still waiting for that, like the crowning jewel moment of tension though. Like you think about Mission
Yeah.
Impossible
Yeah.
when he's like going down on the wire. And it's just this massively
Yeah.
tense scene where this guard comes in and everything has to be perfect.
Yeah.
And you don't get that here. It never pushes it to that
I do
limit.
get that. Yeah,
I love
I
Mission
know what you
Impossible.
mean.
Just thinking about it.
Yeah.
That iconic scene,
Yeah.
just where he's hanging. And you're like,
Yeah.
oh yeah.
Ironically, after coming off of things like Hateful Eight, that film is an example of I feel tension, but I don't know why. And this one is there should be a whole lot of tension, but I'm not feeling it as strongly as I feel like I should be.
And I don't know why.
Yeah.
I'm curious if
To
that's
this
the
movie's
age
credit-
of the movie.
Yeah, it
If
could
there,
be.
if
It
there
could
was
be.
less groundbreaking, well, maybe this was kind of a first step in this genre to
Yeah.
really capitalize on that kind of emotional punch.
Yeah.
To this movie's credit, I do think it keeps everything light and breezy, and the pacing is good. I'm still enjoying myself.
Yeah.
And, I don't need every movie to raise my blood pressure.
There was, I think going back to a trend of this time, there was more of an emphasis on swagger than there was trying to create tension.
There's too much swagger in this movie.
A lot of swagger.
And that was kind of what was important to the 1960 version as well. Like there was this huge like man group power where they're just like they have the high life or they're attractive. Everybody
entourage.
likes them. Yeah, and I think there was kind of a revisiting of that during this time period, early 2000s, where they were bringing back that kind of F everybody, I'm just gonna live it up right now, and that's kind of the mood I get from some of it, not all of it, but I think the focus isn't as much on trying to build tension and have a good time.
Right.
As Benedict heads to examine the ruined vault himself, his men stop the van and find the bags were only loaded with flyers for prostitutes. Benedict studies the video footage and recognizes that the flooring in the vault on the video lacks the Bellagio logo, which had been added only recently to the vault. It is shown that Danny's team used their practice vault to create fake footage to fool Benedict. Furthermore, they themselves were the SWAT team and used their gear bags to take all of the money from the vault right under Benedict's nose. Benedict goes to see that Danny has seemingly been locked up in the storeroom throughout the heist, and thus innocent of any crime. As Tess watches via CCTV, Danny tricks Benedict into saying he would give up Tess in exchange for the money. Benedict, unsatisfied with Danny's plan to get back the money, orders his men to escort Danny off the premises and inform the police that he is violating his parole. Tess leaves Benedict and exits the hotel just in time to see Danny arrested. The rest of the team bask in the glory in front of the fountains of the Bellagio, silently going their separate ways one by one. When Danny is released after serving time for his parole violation, he is met by Rusty and Tess. They drive off, closely followed by Benedict's bodyguards.
Julia Roberts probably is the most underutilized character in this.
Yeah.
And I know you kind of touched on this, Irina. She is such a big-named actress and has so much she can do. And you literally could put anyone in this role. She's just getting tossed around.
I actually think I like her, the ways she trades barbs with Danny.
Yeah, I like that too.
Her comebacks are so good.
Well,
Yeah.
you weren't like usually in that kind of situation. You see like her character is normally the one that you're supposed to be irritated with, but with her, you're like, oh yeah, that's kind of justified. Like,
Yeah.
I get that.
I think the only questionable thing for me was her return to Danny, because he never actually proved anything that would basically cause a woman that wanted to be separated from a thief or, whatever he does to come back just because he got the other guy to abandon her.
There's a lot
I think for me, it would have made more sense if, she saw who Terry Benedict was and decided, yep, I'm out of this situation.
Hey.
And said goodbye to Danny. But I don't see her returning fully and just completely forgiving immediately after that whole fiasco. I think that was a little too quick and wrapped up.
I have either two things that I feel like would have been better. Mm-hmm. One is either her just not being a part of this movie at all, and that subplot being not a part of this movie.
That's literally like the one motivation that Danny has to do this heist, which sounds stupid, but it is.
I think money is
the money is a
motivation,
good
too.
enough motivation.
No, well, I guess
or
you
the
could-
rivalry.
It's the one like emotional motivation.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like it's his one that it's a slightly better motivation than money as far as a moral compass goes, but
It's very ego based.
Yeah.
yeah, But what I'm saying is they could have just set it up as like the villain was the one that got him in prison, and now he's out, so he wants to get him back.
Yeah.
You know? But
I could see that. That actually would have been written a little bit
alternatively, though, I almost would have liked it if she was like co-villain and,
that would have been
kind of in on it with the other guy.
And learning about Danny Ocean because his weakness in this thing is her.
Yeah.
Like kind of, she's exploiting that weakness,
so, like, maybe she exploited him before, and now he's, like, trying to,
that could be
go
interesting.
against it because
and
of that.
they do try to kick him out of the team after he gets involved with her.
They sideline him. That's all it is.
Yeah. Well, I said they tried to kick him out.
They didn't try to kick him
actually,
out.
it was all a trick on Matt Damon's character, apparently. He wasn't actually kicked out. They were just messing with Linus. That's actually what it was.
No, it actually wasn't what it was.
No, that's what he said later.
No, George Clooney, it was his plan all along, but no one else knew it. It was
well, except for Brad Pitt.
No, he didn't know either. He actually had him tail him, and they sidelined George Clooney, but it was all part of George Clooney's plan.
No, but remember, like, they were all communicating with him like normal, like Brad Pitt too. I'm pretty sure that the top two knew what was going on.
Oh, well, Irene and I were talking about that
So the scene where they first see Tess, that is when Rusty sees her for the first time, and he's like, oh, crap, I know who this lady is. And so he's not in on it.
Well, no, he's not in on that portion of it, but whenever they were having him kicked from the group, I feel like Brad Pitt probably did know about it. Otherwise there would have been a huge problem in the
whole reason was George Clooney planned this out well in advance. That was part of his plan to begin with, and Brad Pitt did not know about it because it was obvious.
Where did they say that in the movie?
No, because Tess, when she showed up, Brad Pitt was surprised.
Yeah, I know.
It wasn't a part of the plan. He wasn't a part of that.
But you don't necessarily know that it was an entire plan. Like, I mean, he might have planned it at a certain point, but
so this is getting to a point where this is one of my criticisms of this movie is that you're not quite sure what exactly the plan was, where it was hatched, how it all started, and that's why we're having this discussion right here. But based on context clues upon watching this movie a couple times, this is what I assume is happening. And it's that Danny Ocean had this whole time in prison to think about this and learn that she was with this guy that he may already know some dirt about to begin with. And he's like, no, she can't be with that dude. So he creates this plan. He knows who he's going to pull into it based on the fact that Benedict is someone that took advantage of another casino owner's establishment and is basically demolishing it. And he uses this to get a team together. He knows that he's going to be recognized by Tess and that Benedict will know who he is. So using himself as sort of a distraction, he can get the rest of the team to basically take over. And I think he knew from the beginning he would be recognized. So that's why Matt Damon or Linus is there to kind of take over his role that he would usually do.
Yeah.
But he had to find a way to get others to agree with that.
I think what Noah's saying is that he thinks that Brad Pitt's character was in on it from the beginning.
Well, maybe not the beginning, but from the point that he was getting kicked out. I feel like he probably would have convinced Brad Pitt to act.
Everyone had to be because Linus is the only option by that point.
Why wouldn't you just...
Well, he literally says to him, like, later whenever he's in the elevator, like no, it wouldn't be any fun if we didn't mess with you. He literally says something to that.
He said it wouldn't be any fun if I didn't get to mess with you.
No, I'm with Noah on this. I remember him saying we.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know that this is an important argument.
Why would they do that whole thing at all?
I don't know.
It's dumb, but that's why. Like,
it's not a very important argument. Yeah.
It isn't. But
so before we close out the story portion, Irina and AJ, you are the only two that watched the original. Mm-hmm. How closely has this movie followed that plot line? Is there anything like what's similar and what's different?
I just want you take the floor on that, AJ, if you like.
The biggest difference is the ending. So we have the happy ending in front of the fountains here, where everyone gets their money, and they kind of reminisce, standing next to each other, and they all go their separate ways. The original, they actually lose all their money after getting it. So that was the big twist there. I mean, for the most part, it follows it. It's I feel like the original had a little bit more character depth to each character, which is kind of ironic because it's the Rat Pack and it's still an ego kind of stroking production, so to speak. But
these both are kind of when you think about it.
yeah, and I feel like the criticisms that we're coming at with this movie and the faults that they have, I think Soderbergh still, I mean, this is a remake, so he's still tied to some extent to remake the original movie and be faithful to the overall story without reinventing the wheel, but still adding his own style to it. So that was a little bit of the consideration I gave to it. The original movie is not a wonderful, great movie. I enjoyed it because of the star power of it, I'll be honest. Although there were some boring moments to it that I really was like, I guess I'll just, I had to force myself to finish it.
I think my opinion of the original was watching that, I decided to watch that first before I watched the 2001 because I sat there thinking, I have this option to decide which one I would like to watch first. And so I would like to be one of the few people that have seen the original before the 2001 version. Yeah. And I think watching the 1960 film and then watching this actually softened this one in my eyes. Like I really like the 2001 a lot better than 1960. And I think the biggest enjoyment from the original film was that I think the Rat Pack just has already natural chemistry.
Yeah.
Because during the time that they were filming that, they were doing 2 shows a night at one of the, I think the Sands or something that was in Las Vegas. And they would heckle each other on stage. And then it kind of turned into this unofficial performance where they were just kind of throwing jokes at one another. And Sammy Davis Jr. was just hilarious. I love him. Yeah. Him and Dean Martin, I think, are the two that I liked the most. And I watched a documentary about that film too, and I have decided that I just really don't like Frank Sinatra that much.
Wow.
He's just well,
I've heard he
was renowned for only doing one take and refusing to take more than one because he decided that his one take is always his best take.
Yeah, and there's a lot of ego on set. Yeah, for sure.
He would walk off if people tried to get him to do another one. So
not that Dean Martin's the greatest either, but
yeah.
Anyway, but and I'll bounce off of that as well. I do prefer the new remake. And a lot of the difference here that I was reminded of is, the characters in the original are all getting back together. They're all ex-military, ex-special operation forces. So they've already got this machismo coming to it, and they're kind of proving it to themselves that they're not too old to do this stuff again. But they're kind of forcing their way through it with brute force. Whereas this one's, I mean, they're not everyday Joes, but they're still struggling, especially some of the lesser characters. That it grounds it a little bit in more reality, so to speak, for lack of a better term, and is a little bit more relatable, and their team accomplishment is a little bit more appreciated from that regard.
Yeah.
So both of y'all feel like the remake does a better job.
Yeah, I think it focused more on the story, and that was what benefited it.
Okay.
So, I like it a lot better. And it still tries to reference the original. There are several things in this, like the Saul having a heart attack, quote unquote heart attack. There was actually a character that did have a heart attack but actually dies in the original. So that was an interesting thing to add to this, because having seen the original, I thought he really was having a heart attack because it was following the same format, but that nice little twist of, it was kind of played up so that they could
while
catch
also
them off
paying
guard.
homage to the first
one. So I liked that. I liked some of what they held on to and tried to incorporate here, but they did it in a way that was a little more believable, I think.
I wonder, and I'm not saying I didn't like this movie, but I wonder if I would have liked it better if I had seen the remake first.
You might have.
I mean, the original first.
Yeah, I know I did. So.
It's interesting.
Go ahead.
My opinion on this movie really changes between viewings.
Yes.
Not to jump the gun on my review, but the first time I saw this movie, I was just kind of enamored with the feel of it, and then I rewatched it for the podcast, and I was like, well, I'm a little let down. I don't remember it Maybe it's because I'm viewing it from a critical eye.
Yeah, it could
And
be.
this is really a movie, and we say this a lot, so it's kind of a cop-out, but this movie especially really depends on your state of mind, what you're going into this movie expecting. You know, if you're approaching it from an analytical point versus an entertainment aspect, so...
Yeah, I agree.
That's the thing about Soderbergh, too. Sorry, did I interrupt you?
Oh,
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I almost exactly mirror AJ's sentiments on this. I find, like, if I'm being critical, there's a lot of holes I can poke in it. But as far as the movie itself, just for the sake of entertainment, I was pretty entertained.
Yeah.
So,
With that said, let's take a quick break, and then on the other end of this, we will get into our brief reviews and then talk about this franchise. Welcome back. We're
again.
here to talk about Ocean's 11.
We're here to talk about Ocean's 11.
oh
right.
my gosh, now we have to restart.
Get out of here, Don Cheadle.
David, you have our reviews in a little bowl there. You want to pull them at
I
random?
sure do, Governor.
Oh my gosh.
All right, let's see who's up first. I can't even do it anymore. It hurts. We're gonna start with Noah with a 7.5.
All right.
Yeah. Thinking about it, you know, you can be critical of this movie, but ultimately I think that's not really the point of the movie, to be foolproof and perfect on every level. I think it's more about the fun of the experience and the heist and all of that. And I had a good time with it. I just, like, you can be really critical about a number of aspects of it, just, you know, certain plot points not adding up or things that could have been done a little better. Like the subplot of his ex-wife, they could have executed that a little better. Some of the characters are, they feel less important than they should be. I guess is a good
Judging
way
by the star power behind them.
yeah, even based on it's star-studded, and yet it doesn't quite feel that way, which I guess in a way is a good thing, but not as far as this goes. But other than that, I had a really good time with the heist movie. I think I just like those kinds of films.
Yeah.
So I gave it a 7.5. I will lower it to a 7.
Oh,
though.
plot twist.
Yeah, 7.0.
Okay.
The discussion swayed
yeah.
you.
Yeah, well, just because whenever I was viewing it last night, I was thinking, oh, yeah, this is a fun movie. I'm having a good time. I'm eating Kirby Lane.
Yeah.
You know,
You're in a good mood.
I had all my drinks.
You had the setup assisting the
exactly,
viewing
the setup.
experience.
Actually, there's a lot to be said about having the
Yeah.
perfect setup for a movie.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
This
So-
is one of those, yeah.
So, yeah, like, you know, it's one thing to, like, watch it, you know, in your living room by yourself, like Reese does. But I was watching it with my
Hey, I
my
always have a
beautiful
beer in
lady
my hand.
and with the comfort of food and drink. So maybe that amplified the score a little bit, but
Yeah.
I still had a good time. So I'll stick with the 7.
Fair enough.
All right, next up is Reese with a 6.5.
Having never seen this movie and just all the discussion around it, Steven Soderbergh regarded it as, you know, one of the top directors, even though I hadn't seen many of his films. I was expecting this to kind of like knock me on my butt. Just watching it, like, oh, this is like
I love this
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 is
is-
Ocean's 11.
this is like the heist movie.
Yeah.
You know, it's
okay,
one.
yeah.
It's one of the top ones.
That's what they talk about.
Yeah, but I was really kind of underwhelmed by a lot of it, and just found myself losing interest halfway through. There are certain moments that, you know, I perked up. I was like, oh, okay, the planning of this heist sounds really interesting. I want to see how they pull this thing off. But then the
Right.
actual execution of it, I was confused by the geography of everything and how it was like I missed some of the process there. Like, you don't see a lot of the process. You see some of it. It was more...
Well, they had that, all right, well, you're going to have to explain this as it was going on in
Yeah.
the background, which can be a little weird
Yeah,
sometimes.
the thing is, it's trying to balance this tightrope of being a popcorn movie, but also, you know, showing all of these trying to show some of the intricacies of how it's all done, and I just don't think it quite pulls that off. I wish it had.
It was a juggling act that didn't quite get it so finesse.
I wish it had picked a lane. Like, if you're interested in, if the director were, I feel like he would be the type of director to show you the process. Like, I feel like that's what he wants to show, but he's not showing it.
I would've liked the
Like, I want to
process
see the
being shown
intricate
more.
details of how this heist is pulled off, and it's just kind of glazed over a little bit.
Someone get David Fincher in here.
Yeah, and on top of that, the cast, for the most part, I'm extremely disappointed with. I think that's the main critical blow against this movie, is you have just an absolutely star-studded cast, and only a fraction of them are interesting, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So for me, that really sets it back. That said, 6.5, I'm still enjoying myself. It's a light and breezy heist movie. It's very, well put together from a technical standpoint. It looks good. There's never any moment where I'm like, oh, this is bad. It's well made.
Yeah.
But it just really doesn't scratch that itch. Or at least not the itch that I was expecting it to scratch.
Does it
So
make
if
you
I
want to watch
scratch
the
that
second
itch?
movie?
I'm actually very curious to see where they go from this. Like, I'm actually very optimistic about, how this trilogy is going to play out. I want to see what you do after this heist.
Yeah.
Like, I've heard good things about 2 and 3 as well.
Really?
I just have a quick question. Is this the movie that kind of brought heist movies into the limelight more, or was there?
They've always kind of been a staple.
Well,
Like,
I know they'd been there, but was it kind of one of those phases where it's like, all right, now everyone's going to make a heist movie?
I would say maybe it revitalized it.
That's kind of what I'm getting
No,
at.
I don't think so, because other than the Ocean's movies, can you name a movie in this
Dude,
era?
Italian Job.
That was earlier.
Fast 5.
No, Italian Job, the one with
Oh, the remake, yeah. It was similar to this, I guess. It was a remake.
Avengers Endgame.
When
is
did
a time
the-
heist. That is a heist movie.
No.
It is a
a-
straight up heist.
it's a
But that's
weird-
not in this
it's
era
kinda-
either.
Well, Ant-Man's
I have
definitely
a question
Yeah, that
though.
is
When
more
did
heist.
when did the Mission Impossibles start?
Early 2000s, late 90s.
No, it was 90s, 96, I believe.
Yeah.
But they continued on, and actually, you already said Fast 5, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
definitely is a
No,
heist.
I
was
think this, like,
95.
yeah. I think it stirred interest, and it maybe did help, bring back the heist.
Oh, there's that movie that just came out in the last couple of years. Ocean's 8, that's one. That's not what I'm talking about. But recently, it is a really good movie.
Baby Driver?
Baby Driver, yeah.
Stole that from you, AJ.
That's a great movie.
And Widows, which I haven't seen, is also a heist
All right.
movie.
Yeah.
So it seems like this is a common thing that has been around and is going to keep being around in some way or another. But what I noticed is that none of them are quite the heist feel that Oceans is going for.
Yeah,
it's
it's-
not the traditional heist.
It's more like a heist is involved, but it's not the
Yes.
centerpiece.
And I would arguably say you're right. Ant-Man is actually a pretty decent heist movie, but even then, it's not the center point. It just happens to be
It's a superhero movie with
a
It's an
heist
aspect
vibe.
of it.
subplot.
Yeah. And
Anyway,
so-
to conclude, I do stick with my 6.5 on
Oh,
this
yeah.
one. It was my review.
I forgot you're talking about.
Yeah, I was honestly disappointed in it. I still had a decent time with it. But honestly, if I were watching this just for fun, I might have turned it off. Like, I might have
Really?
moved on to something different. I know that sounds bad, but I think I only finished this movie because of the episode. And while it's competently made, I think it's also just not my cup of tea.
Yeah.
Like, I can acknowledge what it's done really well, but it's just, it doesn't interest me. I don't...
Interesting.
all right.
I like heist movies. In general,
The thing is, I like heist movies too. It's just the manner in which this one was presented was just, it's just not my bag.
You know what I think it is that, and for all those listeners out there who are interested in Reese's kind of cup of tea, if I had to make a guess,
probably chamomile.
yeah, chamomile, the most boring tea that'll put you to sleep.
It's actually
not boring.
hibiscus.
No, I was going to say,
That's a flower.
You, when it comes to movies, from what I have
It's
observed,
chamomile.
I know.
you tend to like movies that have really, really well-developed plots and really intricate detail, or if they miss, but if they aim for the stars and throw a bunch of crap in your face,
Yeah,
you have a great time with it.
Yeah, I like them to take big swings.
And they didn't
And
take big swings in this
There's
movie.
no big swing in this movie.
That's what it missed,
Yeah.
because they had a big
Except
cast.
for
they
Don
could've.
Cheadle's accent.
Yeah.
That was a very big swing, wasn't it?
So it's no Underworld. It's
Do
Underworld.
not
Okay,
bring up
Underworld's guilty
Underworld.
pleasure. We're moving on.
Yeah,
into-
we're not going to talk about those
let's
right
let's
now.
go ahead and move to the next score.
Yeah.
AJ with an 8.5.
Oh,
Wow.
all right.
Yeah, so that's coming down. Reese actually kind of opened my eyes to a lot of what I felt in my gut that I couldn't really put my finger on. So the first time I saw this movie, it was, again, late at night, just kind of tired, wanted something easy to watch. And I was, it's got a reputation to it. It's always one of those movies, oh, you haven't seen this movie? What's wrong with you? I mean, that was my intro to the movie. So I guess maybe I bought into the hype a little bit. And I do enjoy the movie. I, unlike Reese, would have watched it all the way through, and I have watched it again. But like I mentioned before, I was disappointed or remembered the movie with fonder memories the first time I saw it when I rewatched it. And what Reese pointed out was basically the ensemble cast just was lackluster. It fell flat from what it should have been. I actually did enjoy Andy Garcia's character, even though it could have been more. And he actually tied the movie together for me as maybe monotonous, for lack of a better term, as his performance. I did like his character. And it is kind of an interesting take on, maybe he's actually not the bad guy and the whole team is the bad guy. Or they're the bad guys because, they're basically in it for themselves and destroying the city and they're stealing, plain and simple. And maybe he's not the most savory person, but, this is his business. So it's an interesting thing to kind of take that role reversal.
Yeah.
So, let's take this down a full point. Let's go 7.5. That feels a bit right for me.
All right.
Now that I'm, kind of seeing this movie without the tint of the notoriety of it. And I do like Soderbergh's approach to this. I do think that his hands were tied a little bit to follow the original story. It is a remake. While I do appreciate his style that he brought to it, he may have, focused on some of the too subtle aspects of it that don't really translate well to the story, even though I think his intent was to just have an entertaining story that moves you along rather than getting too deep into anything. And I think I've even seen him talk about that heist movies in general are kind of an analogy to filmmaking itself, with the team, the different roles, all coming together, and it's successful when everyone does their job well and comes together and works as a team versus one person trying to do it himself.
I hadn't thought about that. You're constantly battling the higher ups to get what your vision actually is.
And it was somewhat of a personal growth story for him because he was that kind of control freak, or wanted to do every role himself because no one else was trusted to do it correctly or how he wanted to do it. And so, when you let go and delegate and trust your teammates, then things can be successful. There's backstory to this movie that's still interesting, but there are, some flaws into this, even though it is a fun movie. So I think 7.5 feels right for me.
Yeah.
All right.
Alrighty.
Irina with an 8.
What?
All right.
What's wrong with that?
Honestly,
You just were really critical of it.
no,
and then-
that for me that tracks. This time, 8 is less shocking.
Yeah.
It's more. It just seemed like. Never mind.
I think.
Are you really surprised at this point?
Oh, yeah. Okay, go.
No, don't discount her score. I was
That's not
almost
what
an
I
8
meant.
myself, so I think
Yeah.
No, I know. I'm
It's,
not. I was just thinking that I had to defend it from her a couple times, and that's why I was confused.
I like being critical of things I actually enjoy because it just helps me solidify what I think in a weird way. I
this
don't know
movie's
why,
a good
but-
candidate for that.
Yeah. So I think this movie, I still want to keep it at an 8, but I do think that 7.5 makes sense. And I feel that, again, Reese's argument for his scoring actually does make a whole lot of sense. And I don't watch a lot of heist films. It's not usually my thing, but I actually enjoyed this one, so I think that's why I am giving it an 8. And after coming from Now You See Me, both of those films, to me it feels like those films were a middle schooler's ideal heist film, and this is a high schooler's ideal heist film.
This one's operating on a much higher level.
This
I
one's
agree.
it's on a higher level, but still not that much higher. It's like a popcorn film I would have been really into if I were in high school, maybe, and watching it with friends. I think it's successful in that way, and I like to see it as a popcorn film. So I think 8 is decent. It's not like stellar, but I still feel like there are good moments in it, and I would finish it all the way to the end if I were watching it again. So
Yeah.
there's not a whole lot more I can say about it that hasn't already been said. So I think I'll just stick with that for the sake of those that do enjoy this for what it is.
Yeah.
I was thinking that for this movie, I kind of often, whenever I'm thinking about heist movies, I go to what past me envisions as like a gold standard for heist movies, which was, The Italian Job. I really enjoyed the remake of that back in high school when I watched it, and I always think like, oh man, that was a good movie. And then whenever I like compare like current heist movies that I watch to that, I think like, do I like this one better than that? What would I rate that one?
It's good to have a comparison.
And that kind of led to my score, because I think like if I watched it again, I think I would still like Italian Job better, even though I haven't seen it in years.
Wow, yeah.
That would be a fun one to revisit.
I know.
I feel like this movie is like the perfect benchmark for a heist movie because it's
It's like a standard heist.
It's a staple. It's a good heist movie. It is exclusively a heist movie. And it's not amazing. It's not bad. It's, above average, I would say.
Yeah.
Right. I would agree.
That's actually a perfect question I would ask someone, like, if they had just come out of a heist-centric movie, like, is it better or worse than Ocean's 11?
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's kind of like, the barrier for
You
to
also
entry.
have to remember the time this film came out. Like, it does have some dated things, but if I were to go back to that time, there were quite a few films that came out in the early 2000s that were just really horrible. I don't know why, but I don't remember the early 2000s.
We've covered some of them.
fondly.
Tomb Raider.
Is that a heist?
No, I was just talking about
like just that
early 2000s
that
in
era.
general.
And
Yeah.
I think this one, more so than those, withstands the test of time because I can still enjoy this now. Watching Tomb Raider is a guilty pleasure and kind of just remembering how hokey that was.
If there's that's definitely one of the things I can't criticize about this movie.
Yeah.
Except for it is like 99% holds up today.
Yeah. And
Literally, the only
I
thing
think
that
that's
doesn't
good.
hold up is Brad Pitt's stupid hand tattoo and that one pickpocket scene.
And his upturned collar at the end.
We have one more.
We do. And it's me, David, I started with an 8. I actually changed it to a 7.5. This one was a hard one to rate for me, and very similarly to all of you. I'm kind of in that same ballpark. 8 just felt wrong. I think that was the thing that made me go back. It just did not feel like it deserved the high quality of an 8 movie. And a lot of this was me trying to compare to Now You See Me, since that's what we just did before this. And I think I gave those around a 7 or a 7.5. I can't quite remember.
It was around there.
Yeah. And I was thinking, is this better than Now You See Me? In a lot of ways, yes. And
I think you gave it a 6.5.
What?
Now You See Me?
I gave it a 7 or a 7.
No, he liked those.
Both of them were
I know you
like
liked it, but I thought it was...
Yeah.
And I think
All right.
what the difference is that this movie did a lot of things right, but it didn't, like we were talking about, Reese, it didn't aim for the stars. They didn't go for big home runs. At least Now You See Me was being bombastic.
I think, and this is where I'm going to analyze what you like.
Okay.
I think you like when a movie shows you a trick that you can't quite explain, but you want to figure out, which is something that Ocean's 11 does not do.
It's
very
don't.
like everything's laid out. Now You See Me, it's like, oh, I like magic. How do you do that? There's the intrigue.
I like
intrigue there.
intrigue.
It's called computer graphics.
A lot of those tricks are
I know.
practical.
I'm kidding. Go ahead. Sorry.
The point is that both of these are both doing a heist movie. This one was more realistic, but it was kind of boring in a lot of areas. They had some good parts, but a lot of the characters fell flat. At least in the Now You See Me, they went above and beyond. And so I almost can't even put this...
Well, if you're comparing the characters to the characters...
They had,
Now You See Me's characters had virtually no development.
They didn't build the characters as much, but they were over the top. They had
fair.
more... If I'm going to pick a movie, both of them, they didn't build the characters in this at all, really. No more than they did in Now You See Me.
Are we going to be the one podcast that's like, yeah, Now You See Me was better than Ocean's 11?
No,
I didn't.
Hey, I'm not on board with that sinking
I will be
ship.
this guy.
Yeah.
That's okay. I just think that Ocean's 11 just didn't quite hit the right marks. They didn't aim for the stars, and they did a run-of-the-mill movie.
Oh, no, you know what? They did aim for the stars. Brad Pitt,
George
Clooney,
they got all the stars.
Matt Damon.
Good point.
Don Cheadle.
Now you see me had quite a few stars in it too. I just think that it was more bombastic, and they knew they were being kitsch, whatever.
Just omit that word.
You know the word I mean.
You know it. I know it. Everybody knows it. I don't know. I think it's on the same ballpark. And if I had to pick one to watch again, I would probably pick Now You See Me over Ocean's 11 because of it just is more fun.
No,
This movie is-
here's the thing.
I'm bored watching this again.
I'm weirdly with you, but not because Now You See Me is a better movie.
Exactly.
Ocean's 11, obviously, it's a better movie.
Yes.
It's well put together. There's an auteur behind it, whereas Now You See Me has virtually nothing distinguishable about it. But Now You See Me is entertaining in a way that Ocean's 11 isn't. It's throwing stuff at your face constantly.
There's more fireworks.
Now You See Me is the Picasso, and Oceans is the Vermeer.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yes.
there you
If you really want to break it down into classic art, yeah.
Fine art, yeah.
They referenced them in the movie. It was relevant.
Okay, I missed that.
So AJ, you want to crunch those numbers for us before we move on?
Okay, group average for us is a 7.3, which
Not bad.
ties it with World War Z, Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest, and then we have Ocean's 11.
Okay.
I agree with
I
that.
don't. That makes sense to me.
That's fair.
Yeah.
What is below?
So immediately above that is Chronicles of Narnia, Prince Caspian at a 7.4.
Huh.
And below
You
that
just really don't like Caspian.
All right, sorry.
is
hang on,
28
hang on.
Days Later at a 7.2.
Okay.
So
I
this
was
movie's
slightly
pretty
bothered
squarely
by it,
in the middle
but-
of the pack for us.
Okay. Fair enough.
Are y'all ready to get into critics and box office?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, so critics on Rotten Tomatoes gave Ocean's 11 an 82% with an audience score of 80%. On Metacritic, has a 74 from critics with an audience score of 8.7. That's the highest you're going to see it at on this list.
Dang.
And IMDb, which is just an audience-based score, it has a 7.7, which is also fairly strong. So good reviews across the board. I wouldn't say, knocked it
Epic.
out of the park,
Yeah.
but it is solid good reviews for this
You're
first
getting a sequel
movie.
for that.
Yeah, you're getting a sequel, especially when you hear the box office. So let's move on to box office. It's the box office game.
This one's gonna be kind of
We need a
tricky.
little song for that.
So the movie opened in December, on December 7th, specifically in 2001.
So Christmas time.
It was playing against Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, which had been out for, I think, a month at that point.
Okay.
That's
So,
really weird for me because in my brain, I associate Harry Potter as something a little more recent than that. I guess because it had a longer life, but
The budget was $85 million. What do y'all think this movie did at
This
the box
was
office?
Christmas movie, or December at least.
Yes. And this is going to be the worldwide box office.
As always.
Yeah.
So I'll throw it over to David here. What do you think?
You know what? I feel like with this kind of cast into December, I'm gonna go with 400.
400?
I'm gonna throw it up there.
All right. Arena?
I'm gonna throw something out there. I'm just gonna say 275.
$275 million. AJ, I'm going to not let you get boxed in this time, Noah. That's
It's
why.
helping you.
Yeah.
I remember this being successful, so I'll up David here at 415.
415. Noah.
520.
Wow.
Ooh.
Okay. So the movie did $451 million. So
Close. I was about to go
AJ,
for. I was about to
AJ,
go
you're the
500.
winner in this case. Yeah, you got a little too
Well, if you did
excited
500,
there.
you and I would have been even.
I know. That's what I'm saying. Like,
But
pretty close.
$451 million, that...
We're getting good at this. We're in the ballpark.
Yeah.
oh, I would have won that bet. You bet it's 451.
Oh, you.
I would have been.
You would have barely.
Very
beat me.
barely.
So,
That would've been fun.
So
But
this
AJ
is
won
interesting
overall.
too, because I don't think this happens today as frequently. But this movie was sold on star power.
Yeah.
Like it was like you're seeing all these people lined up in this movie, and people are going to see this probably without much knowledge in what Ocean's 11 is. They're just seeing all those names up on the poster, and they're like, "Yep, I'm going to see that." 'Cause
Yep.
Yep.
Because those are all huge.
Yeah, and that's a lot of what this movie's budget is, because I can't see a lot of other areas where it went into. Just assembling this massive cast. And the movie was successful because of that. I really don't see any other reason apart from competent direction.
You said the budget was 80 something
85 million.
85 million? All right.
Yeah, so yeah, it did huge numbers. And this, to me, this does not, other than the star power, it does not look like an $85 million movie, which went up for inflation today is actually much more. It's probably more in the 150 million range.
Okay, let me guess. You have that mainly because of the cast.
Yes. So
that's what he said about.
But even still, with that hefty budget behind it, it really made a ton of money.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money for this type of movie. I don't think if
big reward.
Yeah, I don't think if a movie like this came out today, I don't think it would put up those numbers.
No.
So that's obviously a big reason as to why this movie got a sequel. Obviously there's a trilogy, and then there's another kind of spin-off film after this. It's kind of weird though. I wouldn't have taken Steven Soderbergh as the type to be interested in doing sequels, but you know, we got one 3 years after this one. I guess that just speaks to, again, how successful this movie was at the box office and how it was well reviewed and everyone enjoyed it. It's a crowd pleaser, so it's really no surprise that this franchise lives on after this one.
Yeah. I think I do feel that heist films or things similar to this are more franchisable than others, just because it's easier to come up with more scenarios for them to encounter without it feeling tired out necessarily.
Yeah.
And it'd be pretty easy to switch out certain characters too.
Yeah.
That said, I think this movie works on its own. Like, if it had not had any sequels, it would have been just fine.
Yeah.
Like, it really doesn't need it. But I am also very curious to see where this franchise goes, what kind of heist they try to pull in the other two, because again, we have not watched those sequels, so we have no real idea about what happens.
Well, keep an open mind.
Yeah.
Okay. You said you had seen the second one, right, AJ?
I've seen both. I've seen all three of them.
Okay, cool. And yeah, you seemed a little surprised when I mentioned that they had been positively received as well.
I mean, it's interesting.
It's interesting.
He's trying to keep his cards close.
I don't want to taint your opinion of it.
Yeah.
That's fair.
That really does make me even more curious.
I know.
How where this is headed. Anyway, that closes out our episode on Ocean's 11. Of course, next week we're talking about Ocean's 12.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's a very unique title that I don't think any of us were expecting.
Yeah.
At least it's not Ocean's 11 2.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be really dumb?
That would be really dumb. Yeah, that would be honestly terrible. You can find our podcast on all streaming podcast apps if you're not satisfied with the one you're listening to us on already. We also have a Instagram page manned by David.
Yo.
And we have a Spotify playlist of all the soundtrack music from the various films that we've covered. And if you like our podcast, please rate, subscribe, follow. It all helps us, keep this train a-chugging. So yeah, next week, Ocean's 12. Goodbye, guys.
She's a dancer at the Crazy Horse, too. She's putting away money for medical school. I think she really likes me.